Hello students, welcome to EPG. I am Dr. Sumati from Avinashlingam University, working in the Department of Resource Management. Today we are going to see the family crisis. Each family is unique in its style of living. While some characteristics of the family are fundamental, some keep on changing through different phases. But when the changes are sudden, causing disorganization and disruption in the structure of the family and its functions, there is a crisis. A crisis is something unusual, sometimes that makes one strive for a different and unusual solution to the problem. Any rupturing of family relationships which forces reorganization of the family pattern not only constitutes a family crisis but also a threat to family units. Foster classifies family crisis into two types. First one is loss of economic support, death, severe and prolonged illness and the like. Second one is crisis which involves social stigma and major social calamities like war, economic inflation and depression. Now let us see the objectives in this lesson. The objectives of this lesson are to study the types of family crisis and to give clear-cut idea about the impact of crisis in family management and to acquire knowledge on measures to overcome crisis. Now let us see the sources of trouble. Crises differ in their sources. Some originate within the family, that is intrafamilial, and others outside, that is extrafamilial. Crises which arise as a result of economic depression or other calamities which are beyond the control of the individual family are extrafamilial. Problems arising out of interpersonal relationship with the family are intrafamilial. The first affects a number of families at the same time, while the latter the members of a particular family. Types of disrupting events. Family crises which threaten to disrupt the family can be grouped as a sudden change of status, conflict among family members in the conception, and loss of family members by departure, desertion, divorce or death. Now let us see the crisis which is a proneness in families. Three variables help to determine whether a given event become a crisis in any given family. That is, the hardships of the situation or event itself, the resources of the family, its role, structure, flexibility and previous history with crisis. Definition of the family makes of the event, that is, whether family members treat to their status, goals and objectives, and then stamina or endurance of the family. It is not what the event is, but rather what happens as a result of the event. For example, an economic depression is not a cause of family crisis, although it may have brought about the loss of job and a sharp decrease in the family's income. It is only a precipitating factor. There must be something else present which, interacting with the precipitating event, produce the crisis in a given family. There are two reasons: family integration and family adaptability. By the first is meant the bonds of coherence and unity running through family's life, in which common interest, affection and a sense of economic independence are most prominent. Adaptability refers to the family capacity to meet obstacles and effect adjustments as a family. Now let us see the causes for family crisis. For example, a girl from modern Christian culture with independent views on women's education marries a gentleman from an orthodox Hindu family. There is a deep clift between the outlooks of both, and when the bond of love and affection binding them together loosens, their dissatisfaction arising out of conflicting ideals increases. Eventually, inadequate interpersonal relationship, class membership pressures, economic and other stresses result and take from a crisis and disorganization of the family. Any crisis is a blow to the family. All members are affected collectively. First, there is disbelief of the event and then of the members. This is followed by intense reactions which are expressions of sorrow, anger or aggression. There is tension everywhere. Members are downcast and their interpersonal relationships are strained. They play their roles with enthusiasm. But when the lowest point of organization is reached, things begin to improve. Members learn to accept the inevitable and take up new responsibilities through the trial and error method. They arrive at routines by thoughtful planning and sacrificing and make agreements for the future. The general pattern of adjustment to crisis is in the direction that is crisis disorganization, recovery and reorganization. Crisis has short and long-term effects upon the family. Previous experience in the handling of a similar type of crisis increases the family's ability to adjust to the new one. Had they tried to adopt the same method of adjustment again and again, and if they have faced defeat, it would have led to demoralization and more sensitivity to future exposure. Now let us see the stress management. That is, stress is not a new concern. The ancient Chinese symbol for stress was composed of two characters, danger and opportunity. Both pleasant and unpleasant conditions cause stress. Now let us see the definition of stress. Stress is an imbalance in the transaction between an individual and the environment manifested by specific biological reactions. Stress is an automatic and universal response to overcome causes of discomfort. Sometimes stress creates energy which the body uses to overcome cause of discomfort. Sometimes stress creates energy which the body uses to meet unexpected or threatening conditions. So, stress is a physical, emotional and psychological response to a person or family to a stressful event, condition or demand. The physical response is the same for all family who experience stress. Emotional and psychological responses may vary. Too much of stress can be harmful, particularly when it lingers. Harmful stress is called distress and beneficial stress is called eustress. Stress refers particularly to the residue of the tensions generated by a stressful situation which remains unmanaged. The emotional state of family members, interpersonal conflicts or financial hardships are indices of family stress. The stress producing event, condition or demand is called a stressor. In family literature, stresses are life events or occurrences of sufficient magnitude to bring about change in the family system. Stress is not inherent in a stressor, but is a person or a family's response to the stressor. The amount of change required by the stress factor determines whether it will produce stress in a person or family. Some stress in life may be beneficial. It is generally concluded that it is not the pressures of life but rather how people relate to stressors that makes the difference in their feelings of well-being. Stress varies in intensity from hassles which are bothersome but not disruptive to crisis, which are incapacitating and cannot be managed with the normal resources and routines of a system. Level of stress is related to the perception held toward the event, particularly its perceived solubility versus its perceived insolubility. Stress then is interaction of particular type of event with the perception of it. The degree of stress felt may be due to the vulnerability of the person or family to stress. The amount of time during which stressful events are anticipated, the frequency of potential stressful events encountered, and previous experience in stress management all influence vulnerabilities to stress. The degree of stress encountered is related to the abnormality of the hardship it imposes. Hardships are either an inherent part of the stressor or the adverse conditions imposed by the stressor. For example, the hardships of illness may be identified as cost in money and time, disruption of the routine of other family members, severity of the illness and effect on the ill person, or even the role changes required to manage the illness. Assessment of stress in a family system may be made by a series of comparisons including internality versus externality, perseverance versus boundness, and precipitate onset versus gradual onset, intensity versus mildness, and transitoriness versus chronicity. Stress pile-up is an accumulation without resolution of individual stress responses. In an effort to manage a crisis situation, such as the family's sole earner being fired, a family may experience a pile-up of stress triggered by the breadwinner's physical and emotional response to being fired and expanding to the hardships associated with the family's conditions as a result of the unemployment. Stress regeneration. Level of recovery from stress is related to the integration and adaptability of the family system. Stress can be created or reduced by systems external to the family and by the family's internal managerial behavior. Coping up with stress is recognized as cognitive and behavioral efforts to master conditions of harm, threat, or challenge when a routine or automatic response is neither readily available nor a natural part of the individual or family basic repertoire. Coping underscores the importance of both personal and family resources in the management of stress. Both the cohesion and adaptability of the family and the self-confidence of the individual are resources thought to be of particular importance in coping with a variety of stresses. The output of stress management is adaptation, that the degree to which the family system alters its internal functions, that is, behaviors, rules, roles, perceptions, and or external reality to achieve a fit between the family or individual and the environment. Now let us see the causes of stress. Stress is caused by different events for different people, like pressure from superiors managing our career and household for a housewife, etc. But we may notice that stress is usually acknowledged, particularly when a number of things go wrong one after another in one day or in a series of days. For example, if our child is sick at home, we have an important meeting at the office and we miss our bus, then we may remark, wonder whose face it was I saw the first thing in the morning, or this just is not my day. But we do come across people who have a reputation of being cool in the face of any situation, and we also wonder how they can be that way. This proves that stress consists largely of how we respond to events, not the events themselves. So we can change our behaviors. It is possible to have less stressful lives. There are two ways our body reacts to stress. Learn to recognize both physiologically and psychologically. Physiological reactions are muscle aches and stomach aches, an overall feeling of being upset, insomnia, increased heartbeat, rise in blood pressure, and also increase in breathing rate. According to one psychologist, Hans Selye, there is a set pattern of physiological mechanisms that are activated in response to any stressor. This pattern is called general adaptive syndrome. Psychologically speaking, stress has the following effects. Attention and perception are restricted due to preoccupation with stressor. Then memory is affected, forgetting is more frequent. Interference in judgment, problem solving, decision making. And then arouses fear, anger, jealousy, and discouragement more easily. May cause depression. But the most familiar psychological reactions are defense mechanisms like depression, fixation, displacement, etc. But this is not healthy as it involves self-deception and distortion of reality. Rational encounter therapy developed by Albert Ellis is used. Here we use self-statements for coping with our stress. First is preparation. I can deal with the situation. That is, worrying will not help me. The next one is confrontation. That is, one step at a time. It is normal to feel anxious. I am in control. Take a deep breath. The next one is coping. When fears comes, pass. Focus on the next course of action. You cannot eliminate fear totally. So just try to keep it manageable. It is not the worst thing that can happen. The next one is self-reinforcement. I was able to do it. I was not as bad as I expected. I am pleased with the progress I am making it. Then let us see the long-term strategies for stress management. That is, we should modify our environment. That is assertiveness. Sometimes simply letting the persons concerned know that a certain behavioral situation causes you stress may alleviate your stress. For example, you may let your boss know that lack of delegation of your weak and untimely delegation leaves you in a fix as what work has to be completed and makes you rush through certain jobs since they were delegated at the last moment. Next one is withdrawal. It is to be used with discretion. Example, a stressful situation may be avoided if the subordinate withdraws when his short-tempered boss is in a bad mood. Next one is compromise. It involves conformity, negotiation, and substitution. Next one is laughter as a means of reading stress. There are several lines of evidence to suggest that humor is used by children to handle stressful home life. A longitudinal study examined the development of humor in children during the first 6 years of their life. Elementary school children who laughed the most were those who had been exposed to tough and potentially hazardous situations and whose mothers withheld help in solving problems. In contrast, children who had been babied and protected from conflict have a less developed sense of humor. This finding supports the view of Freud that human develops humor as a means of coping with stressful or anxiety-arousing circumstances. Also, a study revealed that comedy writers tend to come from family background filled with tension. So, if a stressful childhood can promote the development of humor, maybe laughter can work to reduce adult stress in later stages. Norman Cousins, a former editor of the Latter-day Review, USA, such reasoning to help him recover from a serious illness. He was hospitalized for a rare disease of the connective tissue which was crippling him and from which he was told he would not recover. Working with a cooperative physician, he was chucked out of the hospital into a hotel room where for several months he supplemented massive injections of ascorbic acid with a steady diet and an old candid camera, which is comedy films and other belly laugh including movies. He completely recovered from his incurable disease after a few months. 15 years later, high pressure schedule of travel, speaking and deadliness lead to a heart attack and diagnosis of damaged heart muscle and congested coronary arteries. Cousins was able to avoid a bypass operation by again taking charge of his recovery. Following a regimen of diet, gradually increasing exercises, amateur photography and humor, he was able to resume full-time work within less than a year after his attack. Then we have to alter our lifestyle. Since we have more control over useful than our environment, we may choose to modify something about ourselves as a better way of managing stress. Then first build up a greater tolerance to stress. Stress tolerance is defined as how much of stress we can handle without acting in a disorganized or rational way. It can be built up by keeping in good physical shape, selecting reasonable goals to accomplish, adjusting our expectations to match the reality of the situation, then change the pace of our life. We bring a lot of stress on ourselves by rushing around and trying to accomplish too much in less time. Frequently, we can reduce stress by better time management than practice centering. Centering is a breathing technique that helps us to relax and eliminate problem thoughts. Breathing low down in your abdomen so that the abdomen extends when inhaling and collapses when exhaling. This is the martial arts procedure that emphasizes thoughts, control, a particular way of breathing, and muscle relaxation. The technique derives its name from the fact that if done properly, it lowers one's center of gravity. While centering, we should consciously relax and drop our neck and shoulder muscles, letting our arms hang down our side as low as possible. It can be done standing or sitting, and breathing should come from very low down in the abdomen. Next, seeking out close relationships. It is not surprising that we manage stress more successfully and enjoy better health when we have the support of a spouse or a close friend. Why? Close relationships give an opportunity to share painful feelings which may become burdensome if kept to ourselves. Therein, understanding and support bolsters self-esteem. They may provide information or advice that they may help us reach more effective solutions to overcome problems. Then we will see the ways to cope up with stress in our weakening environment. We should become aware of our style of coping with stress. Avoid unnecessary stressful situations. Be aware of the politics at our workplace. Don't allow ourselves to become a victim of rumor. We'll get the real fact. Maintain interpersonal relations. Ventilations of concerns with others help relieve stress. Watch our physical health and nutrition. Don't let our jobs overflow into other areas of our life. Learn to separate work problems from our social life and home. Example, if we are unable to speak up against a domineering boss, do not come home and let the steam on our wife and kids. Schedule regular variations. Avoid overcommitments or tasks we cannot complete. Finally, instead of waiting for stress or illness to come and then reacting to it, we need to set goals and structure our life and lifestyles in ways more likely to bring us what we want. Take an active role in taking charge of our life. Once in a way, realize that it's okay. If someone else has their own way, it's okay. If a person doesn't look at an issue from our point of view, it doesn't matter. If someone else has won the argument, even if we think we are right, let's go with the issues as stress is trivial. Next, let us see bereavement. Bereavement is the dismemberment in the family resulting from the death of a member. The loss is permanent. Even though the deceased person's role may soon be taken up by somebody else, the personal loss of a member of the family remains forever. It may be the loss of mate, parent, child, sibling, or other close relatives or associates. Its effect varies with the age of the bereaved, its emotional involvement in the family, manner of death, relationship of the bereaved, and degree of emancipation of the bereaved person. The degree of loss felt by the bereaved varies from individual to individual. The deceased is the head of the family and earning member. His loss is felt by all family members intensely, especially if there is no other member who can take up this role. It is more for a young man's death than for one who dies at ripe old age. Next, let us see the divorce. It's one of the family crises. Divorce is merely the undoing of a marriage. It's the process of unmarrying people who have been married. It's an official recognition that their marriage is a failure and therefore has more cause for being terminated rather than continuing. However, though divorce indicates the failure of a particular marriage, its absence does not indicate success. Let us see the effects of divorce. Effects of divorce vary from family to family. Both personal and general losses are involved. Loss of former love object affects the world situation. Each party blames the other and there is general yearning, frustration and sense of emptiness. But for some, divorce is eagerly avoided in the hope it will pave way for a newer type of life. For them, divorce is an escape from one situation to another. Children are worst affected by divorce. There is too often a pulling and hauling at the child from both sides. While children are affected severely by divorce, childlessness itself acts as a reason for a divorce. But if the couple are really and truly bound by the bond of love and affection, the question of divorce is not likely to arise under any circumstance. Next, let us see the separation and single parent families. Separation is the willful leaving of one mate from another. It is one of the most common reasons for broken homes. Marital instability produces more single-parent families. Single-parent families have encountered phenomenal growth. Most of the families are headed by women who are divorced, separated, widowed, and single-parent families. Now let us see the measures to overcome crisis. Each day makes a list of things we want to accomplish. Arrange the things in order of priority, the toughest things first and the easiest last when we are low on energy. Then arrange work schedule to take most advantage of the hours when we work the rest. Always set aside a time when we can work without interruptions. Be flexible about changes in our schedule so that we can handle unexpected events. Plan for some leisure activity during the day. Set aside some times each day a week in which we always do some planned leisure activities. Central decisions can be made such as revising short and long range goals, establishing new roles and responsibilities, and implementing instrumental and expressive tasks to foster personal growth and development. Comprehensive patterns of management also include decisions about changing the level of consumption. Family adjusts to change in income and economic conditions. This stage allows families to adjust their values, goals, and standards to meet the needs of their family members with the least amount of disruption. To conclude, family adaptability, family integration, affectional relations among family members, good marital adjustments between husband and wife, companionable parent-child relationships, family council type of control in decision making, participation of wife in activities outside the home, and previous successful experience with crisis are all important factors in enabling families to adjust to crisis. A majority of these crises and problems are not under the control of the family. They must be endured with patience, thoughtful planning, maturity, and ability to adjust to new circumstances will help. It is not a task to be accomplished by a single individual. The whole family needs to be raised as a cooperative endeavor with the motto, United we stand and divide we fall. Thank you.